Hacking the Sony PlayStation 3 turns this great console into a gaming powerhouse. You can install any game from its backup file directly onto your internal hard drive and have the full game library at your fingertips. So, let me show you how to jailbreak your PS3. Hi and welcome to Bytes and Bits. The Sony PlayStation 3 was the company's flagship console for 7 years, from its launch in 2006 up until the release of the PlayStation 4 in 2013. Now, over that period, it built up a huge following and, more importantly, a fantastic games library. Now today, you can pick up a fully working unit in good condition with original controllers for around about £60 or so. And at that price, it's great value for money, especially since the console is so easy to jailbreak. And that means that you can then play any of these games from your DVD backup files. Now in this video, I'll show you how to use the PlayStation 3 BGToolset by a band called Burgerville, and that will then install a custom firmware mod onto your console. So that will allow us to have a look at how you can back up your original game discs, and then how you can use any game backup file to copy that software onto your PS3 so that you can then play the entire back catalogue of titles. So let's hack the PlayStation 3. Now before we start, just a note for non-Windows users. There is one step in this process that does require a Windows-based laptop or a PC. Now it's to run a final check on your console to make sure that it's safe to install the custom firmware. Now you can skip this step, but if you do, then you do risk bricking your PS3. You don't need the Windows PC next to your console. You can, if you have a friend with a PC, you can simply email a file over to them and get them to check it for you. But I do strongly advise you do complete this step. Now I'll talk more about it when we get there, obviously. For a second reality check then, unfortunately not all models of the PlayStation 3 can be hacked with this custom firmware. So our first task then is to actually identify which PS3 model we have and work out if it is compatible with this custom firmware. So if you have one of these ones, so this is the original or the FAT model, well then this is completely compatible. So if you have any of these at all, then you can use it in this project. If you have a super slim model, and I'll put a picture of that on the screen at the moment, then unfortunately that cannot be hacked. But we can of course use something called PS3HEN. If you have then one of these models that I'm going to be using in this particular project then, so this is a slim model, well some of these can be hacked. So what you're looking for here is one of the earlier slim models, and you need to look at the actual model number, and you'll find that then if you turn the console over, there is a number here on the bottom, and so just about on here there's a little details plate, and inside there you will find a serial number for this particular model, and that will be in the format of CEHC followed by a 4-digit number. So if your console is in the 2000 series or the 2100 series model, then you can hack it. So the one I've got here then, as it says down here, this is CECH 2003A. So this is of course compatible, and as I said, that's the one I'm going to be using in this particular project. Now, if you have a model where the number is 2500, then those are the ones that might be hackable, but we won't find that out until we actually go through partway through the actual hack installation process. If you have a 3000 model or a 3100 series model, then unfortunately those aren't compatible. But again, the PS3HEN system will work on those. And as I said, part of the jailbreaking process is that we will run a full compatibility check just before we actually hack it, just to get a definitive answer. But the numbers I'm giving you out here should then give you a good guide. And that's especially then true if you're looking to buy a PlayStation 3 for this project. So simply then, just make sure that you either get a FAT model or a slim model with a 2000 series or a 2100 series model number. Now, most listings on places like eBay and so on, they'll show you which model it actually is, or if they don't, then just do make sure that you ask the seller to check that for you. Now, as I said, if you have got an incompatible model, then don't worry. You can still hack it and use homebrew using something called PS3HEN, and this is a homebrew enabler. And I've got a video which shows you exactly how to go through that process. So PS3HEN, it doesn't allow you to do absolutely everything that a full custom firmware hack will do, but it does allow you to play all of the games, run them all from backup files, and then most of the popular homebrew apps such as emulators and so on. So do make sure that you check out that video so that you can get the most from your PlayStation 3. Now, there are a few different ways of installing custom firmware onto your PS3, but the easiest then is to use Bergeville's PS3 toolset. Now, this is a set of software tools that make use of a vulnerability in the PlayStation 3's browser. So to use the toolset, we simply need to visit the ps3toolset.com website. Now, before we can think about hacking the machine, I'd advise you to think about your internal hard drive. Now, most people use this hack to play games from backup files. To be honest, that's why we're doing it. And you're probably going to be ending up playing PS3 games, but also then PS2, PS1, PSP, and also then a whole range of other retro consoles. We really can turn this PlayStation 3 into a real retro gaming machine. Now, of course, all of this software is going to take up a lot of hard drive spaces, and most consoles from the PlayStation 3 range didn't come with massive internal drives. Now, you can use external USB drives, but I actually find that upgrading the internal one to around about 1 terabyte or so just means that I can stick everything on there with plenty of space to spare. Now, these drives, if you buy them second hand, will come in at around £25 for a used 1 terabyte laptop drive, and it does make great sense to do that. Now, if you do want to upgrade your hard drive, please do check out my PlayStation 3 upgrade video, but please do this before you go through the hack process, as it just makes the whole disk swap process just so much easier. So, with our console ready for our hack, let's get on with our exploit. The first part of the hack is to make sure that our console is fully compatible with the custom firmware, and there's a few things that we're going to need to check. So if you've been messing around with your console installing PS3HEN or some other firmware modifications, then it's probably a good idea to remove those and get yourself back to a stock console. To help with that, I did make a video to get you back to the original firmware, so please do have a look at that so you can get your PS3 into a good state at the start of this project. Now, the custom firmware that we'll be installing will only be compatible with a range of original firmware versions. So if you head over to the ps3exploit.me website, you'll see what that range currently is. So at the moment that I'm making this video, the toolset mod will work with versions 4.75 to 4.91. Now, this may be different when you come to install yours, but just follow along the same process and just make sure that you update to a supported version. So to check this, boot up your PS3 and go to the Settings option on the cross menu bar and then select System Settings. Then go all the way down to the bottom and select System Information. And here you'll see your system software version listed. Now, if this isn't in the current range, you're going to need to run a system update from the option at the top of this settings menu. If you see a version number with letters after it, like PS3HEN, then you've got some sort of mod installed and you'll need to uninstall that. And again, just have a look at my console reset video. So next, we need to be connected to the internet. Now, if you can't get your console connected, this tutorial isn't going to work for you. You can get this set up by going to the Network Settings option on your PS3, and from here go to the Internet Connection Settings, and then just follow the prompts to connect your Wi-Fi or Ethernet. We now need to make sure that the date and time on the console is set correctly, and this just makes sure that the exploit software has the correct values to work with. So again, in the Settings section, select the Date and Time settings, set the Automatic option to On, and then make sure that the other settings for time zone, etc. are all correct as well. You then need to select the date and time option to set the actual values, and select the via internet option to have the console update itself correctly from some online time sources. Now our next step then is to create a temporary user for our exploit. So this just makes sure that the user account is at the default settings so that the exploit code can run in the built-in browser. Now it's probably not an essential task, but it just removes any settings issues that there may be with your existing users. So on the XMB, go to the far left for the user section and create a new user, and just choose any name you want, because we're going to be deleting this user at the end of this process. So once you've done that, just log in as this user. So we can now start to load the exploit code. So on your cross menu bar, go to the network section, and we need to start up the browser app. Now we're going to need to clean this out, so this is going to run the toolset code correctly. So when your browser's open, just simply click the triangle button to open up the settings menu. Then use the D-pad to move up to the tools section and select JavaScript, and make sure that that's turned on by clicking the right D-pad button and then selecting on. Now once we select each of these settings, we're going to drop back into the browser, so just press the triangle button again to get back to settings. We need to go up to the tools section and set confirm browser close to off. So now we need to go back again into tool settings, and this time select the homepage option with the X button. Now we want to select use blank page for this, and then make sure that the restore window at startup is unchecked, and then select OK to save those settings. So last bits we need to do then, back into our tool settings, and you'll see that there are 4 delete options at the bottom of the list for clearing cookies, search history, cache, and authentication. So you simply need to select each one of these in turn and then just clear it. So once all that's complete, just simply exit out of the browser with the circle button, and that should give us a completely clean browser. So just open the browser back up again and press the start button to bring up the address bar. And now we need to type in the following address. So we want to go to ps3toolset.com. And once you've got that typed in, just click on the start button or the enter button on the virtual keyboard here. Now this should then take you to the BGToolset website. Now if you get a warning about letting a script run, then just make sure that you allow that, as that is the actual software that we want to install. So you should now see some messages appearing as the toolset exploit is downloaded and run. And if you get any errors during this process, just back out of the browser, restart the console, and restart the browser cleaning step. Now if all's gone well, you should get a confirmation message, and a donation pop-up will probably appear. Now, the toolset developer, as well as the PS3 exploit team who create and manage this firmware code, they provide all of this free of charge. But as you can imagine, they do put in an enormous amount of work to create these tools. So if you find any of this useful, then please do consider making a donation to help cover the costs of servers and stuff like that, and maybe treat the team members to a cup of coffee or something stronger. Now, with the code up and running, we're ready to start using the toolset. So since we're going to be coming back to this page, let's bookmark it so we don't have to keep typing in that address. So just hit your select button and then select add bookmark. Now if we ever want to get back here, you can just simply press the select button again and then just select the bookmark that you want to use. So back on the toolset page, we want to select the System Manager tab, and it will probably start scanning your console and report back to you with some important information. Now the most important bit at the moment then is a green tick at the top of the window, and this means that your console is fully compatible and ready to start the hack. If you don't get a green tick, then you're probably going to have to resort to the PS3HEN hack from my other video, as it's saying that your PS3 console isn't compatible with the custom firmware. So if everything's okay and you've got a green tick, we can just close down the browser, and we're going to now prepare all the parts that we need to install the custom firmware. So to install the custom firmware, we're going to need to prepare some files on our PC and then port them over to the PlayStation 3 on a USB thumb drive. So you're going to need a USB drive, and that has to be formatted in the FAT32 file system. Now, if you're not sure how to do this, then please have a look at my FAT32 formatting video. Now, the drive that we use doesn't need to be massive, as it's only going to be used to copy over a few gigabytes of file, but it must be FAT32 formatted. Now, if once you've created your drive, you want to just make sure that everything is okay, just plug it into the USB port at the front of your PlayStation, and then just go on to your XMB. And if you have a look in the music or the video section, you should find the USB drive popping up in there. And that just means that the PlayStation is able to read that drive. Now, the first download that we need is the actual custom firmware package that we're going to install onto our console. Now, the best option for this is the custom firmware from EvilNat. Now, this code is kept up to date with the latest official releases, and the programmer does put a lot of effort into making this a great package to install, and that's why we're choosing this one. So to get the latest release, go through the PSX Place website. So if you head across to this web address here, and again, I'll put this link down in the description. So from this page, you should then find a link to the latest EvilNat released page as a pinned post at the top of the post list. Now, on this page then, you're going to find out all about the latest version. So if you read through these notes, you'll see that this code is continually being improved, and it offers some fantastic features as a custom firmware option. So as you come down this release post, you'll eventually come to the download links. Now, there are a range of versions of the custom firmware depending on what you want to do with your console. So if you click the download link, it's going to take you off to a file hosting website where you can go and see what's available. Now, at the time of making this video, there are a range of beta versions to choose from, and the latest one, of course, will be the best as it will be the most up to date, but it will depend on what variations have been completed. Now, obviously, when you get here, there may be different options depending on what date you come. But really what we're going to be looking for here, there are three main versions of the firmware, and these are labelled CEX, PEX, and DEX. So CEX is the full retail version of the firmware. So this basically mimics a standard console, which will let you run all the homebrew code that you want, but it does limit the system then to standard operating calls. It doesn't expand upon what you can do with your retail console. So PEX then, this is the retail version, but they've added in a few extra bits of system calls, and this will just add some extra functionality into your jailbroken PlayStation. And again, part of that then will be able to allow you to be able to upgrade that then to the DEX version. So this is the development and debug firmware, and really, if you are going to be using this, you will know what you're doing. So if you don't understand what this is all about, just leave this one alone, please. So in general, I'd say opt for the PEX package, as that will give you all the functionality you need as regards your homebrew and playing games, but also then give you the option at a later time to expand it out a wee bit more if you want to. If you do just purely want to play games on this system and you're not worried about sort of investigating further into the homebrew scene, then you can of course just go for CEX, and that will work fine. So on the download site, you just simply need to navigate into the package and then find the download file for the version that you want. So for me then, if I'm coming in here to the beta version 10 release, there is a PEX package available. As you'll see here, there's no CEX package available yet. But that doesn't matter then. So I'm just going to download this one, and that will then be delivered down to me as an archive file. So once I've saved that somewhere on my PC, you'll see that mine has come down as a .rar format archive. Now, some of these archive files, you probably find that your computer won't be able to open these directly using its normal file manager. So you will need the help of some sort of app. So I'd recommend either, on a PC at least, I'd recommend either the 7-zip app or the package that I'm using here, which is the A Shampoo Zip Pro Pack. So once that file has been downloaded, all we need to do is to extract it into its own folder, because those are the files we're actually going to be using, and then you can of course delete the archive file if you want. So next we will need some tools to help us back up and verify our NAND or our NOR flash data. So this will help us save our console if we manage to brick it at some later date. Now the software we're using here is the Pi PS3 Checker app, and we'll get that from the Pi PS3 Tools package. And you can download this from its GitHub repository at this web address here. So on the main page, just simply click the link for the Pi PS3 Checker standalone zip archive file, and then click its download link to save that then down to your computer. So again, we're going to need to extract this file into its own folder, and once we've done that, we can of course then delete the archive file. So that's all the software that we need to install and check and verify our hack. So all we need now are some actual applications to run on our newly hacked PlayStation. So the first package that most people install is called Multiman. And this is a sort of all-in-one package that's going to let you play PS3 games from a disk backup. It will let you back up your already existing DVD titles and a range of other useful tasks. So to get hold of some homebrew code, a great place to start is the brewology.com website. So if you head over there, you'll find a link on the left for a range of systems, but of course we want to go now to the PS3 homebrew store. So from here, you can really start exploring the whole homebrew scene. So the homebrew link on the right will take you to information and download links for a full range of applications that you're soon going to be able to install onto your PS3. And these are sort of categorized off into apps. We've got some games, we then have emulators, and some development tools. So again, you can just simply scroll through these, get some information on the app itself, and then you will find some download links. But for now though, we just want to grab a copy of Multiman. And as you can see, that has a dedicated link then on the left. So we want to go to that page, and then we want to look at Multiman itself. So if we click on that, we can expand out this section and then scroll down for some information and of course then the download links. Now we want to download the base package, but don't worry about the 4.85 version number. If you look at the text just above there, you'll see that this is fully compatible with the 4.91 version that I'm installing. And of course, if you're doing this at some point in the future, it will most likely be completely compatible with whatever version you're going to be working with. So the download link itself then, it's going to download a .pkg file, which is the sort of normal homebrew package installer file format. Now, your browser might not be very happy about this, so if it does complain, do go into your download section and tell it that this file is actually fine to download and save onto your computer. So this PKG file is the one that we're actually going to be using on the PS3, so there isn't actually any need to extract it. So that's all of our software downloaded now, so let's build up our USB drive and get that ready for our actual installation. Now there's only really two files that we need to copy over to our USB drive. So first we need the actual custom firmware package. Now if you have a look at your downloads, you should find the EvilNat folder that we extracted earlier. Now inside this you should find a PS3 folder, and inside that an update folder. Now inside this update folder there should be a PS3 update.pup file. Now remember, if you can't see the .pup, you may have to turn on the file extensions in the view menu on your PC. So this file then is the actual firmware. Now on our USB drive, we need to use this exact same folder structure. So the easiest way to do this is to simply back out until you can see the PS3 folder, and then just simply copy that directly onto the root of your USB drive. So on your USB drive, in the root, you should now have a PS3 folder, all capitals, and then inside that an update folder, again all capitals, and then inside that the PS3 update.pup file. And again, do make sure that all the file and folder names are fully capitalized. So next we need to copy the multiman.pkg file onto the root of our SD card. So this is the normal way that we will install homebrew packages. So they come as this package file. So if you do want to install anything else at the same time as we're making all of this over, then do just simply download the PKG files for those bits of homebrew and copy them onto the root of your USB drive as well. Now, at this point, it is very important for us to check our downloads to make sure there's no corruption of the files. Now, if anything has gone wrong, we would risk bricking our console, which we do really want to avoid. So if you go back to the download folder for the custom firmware, you'll find an MD5 checksum file. So open that up and you'll find a long hexadecimal number. So it's got numbers and then the letters A to F inside it. So this is a special code generated by running the file through a special algorithm that generates this code that verifies the file contents. So keep this number open on your PC. Now we're going to open up your web browser and go to this online checksum site. And again, I'll put a link to that in the description down below. So make sure that the settings for this then, that we have input type is file, our output encoding is hex, and the HMAC is disabled. You can then check any file by simply clicking on the input box and selecting that file, or by dragging and dropping it into this area. So the file that we need to check is the PS3HEN file, but we must check the one that's on your USB drive, not the one that you downloaded. So make sure you select that. Then as you do so, it will generate an MD5 value for you. And then you simply need to manually check that with the one that was in the MD5 text file that we downloaded. So if the both of them match, then that means that the file that's on your USB drive is exactly correct and is not corrupt. So we're ready then to install that as firmware. If it doesn't match up, then just simply go back, re-download the PS3HEN.pup file from the EvilNat website, and then just check again with the MD5 value just to make sure that that has come down correctly. So we now need to move across to the PlayStation 3 console and unplug your USB drive in and power on the console. So our first task then is to download a copy of our current flash contents, and this is both to make sure that we have a safe backup in case we brick our PlayStation at some future time, but also then we're going to run a check on that just to make sure that it's not got any errors that would mess up our firmware installation. So again, make sure your USB drive is plugged in and start up your console browser. So again, we need to go to that PS3Toolset.com website, but if you bookmarked it from the last time we were here, then that should be in your bookmark section, so just use that. Now as usual, we have to let the site load up, and if you get any script pop-ups, just allow those to run. So once you're into the main toolset interface, go back up to the top menu and select the System Manager button. Now this will of course again scan our console and report back with a range of information. Now, if you move your cursor then, there is an option on here for flash memory. So if you select that with your mouse and then click X, then you should get a single menu option appear that will allow you to back up your NAND or NOR flash. So select that. So it will now ask you where you want to save this backup, so select your USB drive. And then it will start to back that up. So this process can take a while to complete, so just let it run through. So once that's finished then, we need to take our USB drive back out of our PlayStation and plug it back into our PC. So on your PC then, open up the USB drive and you should see a dump.bin file. Now this is your flash backup, and it's important then that we make a copy of this somewhere safe. So this backup is going to let you recover your console if you mess that console up and brick it at some later date. Now, these backup files are specific to each console, so you must have this particular backup file if you want to rebuild this particular console you're working on. You can't just have one backup file and expect to rebuild any console that you have. So with that backup file safely stored away, then we now need to run a final system check using this file as well. So earlier we downloaded the Pi PS3 System Checker app, and we extracted that into its own folder in our downloads area. So again, if we open up this folder, we then can make a copy of our dump.bin file in this Pi PS3 System Checker folder. So once that's copied over, you should now have your dump.bin file sitting inside our System Checker folder. Now, to check the flash code, you simply need to drag and drop the dump.bin file on top of this file here, which again, it specifically says drag and drop your flash file here. So this is a batch file, and once we drop our dump.bin file on top of it, it will run the batch file using our dropped file as the input. So you'll get a terminal window will pop up, and that should show you some results. And one of the things we're looking here are the number of dangers and the number of warnings. So if you have any dangers, then there's something wrong with the flash on your console, and that means that it will not be able to install the custom firmware. So if you were to go through, there would be a serious risk of you bricking your console. So you either need to investigate and fix these dangers, or just simply go off and install the PS3HEN hack instead. Now, if you get any warnings, then those are things that you do need to sort out before you continue. You can scroll up in the command prompt window here, and you'll see what those errors and warnings are. And you can also then save this log file to keep a record of what's just happened, and then go off and fix those at your leisure. Now, I'm not going to cover how you go through and fix these warnings in this video, so please do have a look at some online help for that. But one thing that might help though is that if you do have warnings, doing a complete factory reset can sometimes wipe things and bring them back down to basics. You're going to be reinstalling and reinitializing the firmware on there. But again, you can go through the whole dumping process. Once you've done that, you can go through the whole dumping process again and just check to make sure that that has actually fixed these warnings and these errors. So if you've managed to get through then and you're showing up as 0 warnings and 0 dangers, then we're ready to continue with our custom firmware installation. So back on the PlayStation then, again, make sure you've got your USB drive plugged back in again. So first we need to change a couple of settings. So go to the settings section and select system settings. Now here we need to turn off auto updates, and that will make sure that the console doesn't download new firmware and overwrite our newly installed custom firmware code. Next, it's also a good idea to turn off the display what's new at startup option so that we can jump straight to the game menu. So next, you need to open up your browser and go back to that PS3toolset.com website. So once that's all opened up, click on the System Manager option again and get that to load up. Now we need to install the flash memory patch. So move your cursor to the option in the list for flash memory and then click X. So next, from the options that pop up, we want to load via HTTP, and that will then open up a download window and download and verify the patch from the website. So just let that complete and then close the window. So we now need to actually apply the patch. So that this process will allow the custom firmware to be installed onto the console. Now while the toolset is applying the patch, you must not do anything that could interrupt it, like clicking something or messing around with the console. So if you do risk bricking your PlayStation. So again, click on the Flash Memory Patch option and then select the Apply Patch menu item. You'll get a warning message pop up, but if you're all ready to go, just simply select Yes and then leave the console and controller alone. So this patching process can take up to a few minutes depending on what type of console you have. Now at times it may look like nothing's happening and that it's crashed, but just simply ignore this and just let it run through there and finish. So eventually you should get a success message and a green tick, and this means that everything has gone to plan. And you can now back out of your browser and go back to the XMB. So you now need to power off the console by hold down the PlayStation button on your controller and then select Turn Off System. Now once it's turned off, just turn it straight back on again, and this just simply makes sure that that newly patched flash is all ready to run. So again, we need to log in as our temporary user and then get back to the XMB. So our console is finally ready for our custom firmware. So make sure that your USB drive is still attached, and then go to the settings menu and scroll up to the top for the system update option. So select this and then select the update via storage media option. So this is going to check your USB drive, and it should report back that it's found the EvilNat firmware version that you downloaded. So if this all matches up, select OK and then wait for the terms page to load. Now if you find this isn't working or it's blocked, then you can use something called safe mode, and again I'll discuss that after we've gone through this process. Now if you want to read the terms when they pop up, just use the D-pad to scroll up and down, but once you're happy, press the right D-pad button and then accept the terms. Then select the Start button and the console will copy the update file over to its internal hard drive. Now once that's copied over, the PS3 is going to reboot and then drop you into system update mode. So you now need to just press the PlayStation button on your controller, and that should then start the actual update installation. And again, just leave this running until the console finally reboots. So once it reboots, you'll see a slightly different boot sequence, but that will then drop you into what looks like the normal login screen. But you're actually now running a fully custom firmware modified PlayStation 3. So just log in as your temporary user for now, because we're going to go and start to clean up the machine. So if you now go to the far left on the XMB, you'll find the user menu. So highlight your temporary user and click the triangle to bring up the options. So we're just going to delete this user account because we've actually finished installing our custom firmware and we don't need this user anymore. So we now need to start using some of our homebrew features. So on the cross menu bar, if you go over to the game menu, you'll see a new option in there which is Package Manager. Now Package Manager is the base application on your jailbroken PlayStation 3, and it's going to allow you to install other homebrew programs using their downloaded package files. Now if you remember, we downloaded the Multiman app as a .pkg file, so let's go and install that. So if you open up Package Manager and select the Install Package option, you'll see that there are a number of options on where to install packages from. So we put the package into the root folder of our USB drive, so just make sure that's still connected up and select the standard option. Now you should see the Multiman package file listed along with any other package files that you downloaded as well. So for now, just simply select Multiman and click the X button. And this will now copy the code from our USB drive over to our internal hard drive and then install the app. So this takes a little bit of time to complete. But once it's finished, use the circle button and you should then return to the XMB. And you should see now under the game section, Multiman sitting there in the games list. So if you select that, we can run Multiman. So when it's first run, it will need to go through a few setup procedures. But once you've completed that, you should now fall into what looks like an XMB, but it is actually the Multiman version of the cross menu bar. So one of the first things you'll probably want to do with Multiman is to turn off the theme background music. So to do that, go across to your settings menu and then just simply scroll down until you find the theme audio option, and then just disable that, and that will give you some nice peace and quiet while you play with Multiman. Now Multiman is packed with useful tools to let us work with our hacked PS3, but the main thing that most of us will want to do is to use it to play games. So Multiman will let us play games from the original DVDs and from backup files on our USB drive, but it will also let us copy these games to our internal hard drive and then play them from there. So I've got a DVD for Gran Turismo in my console, so I could obviously just launch it as normal and play the game directly from there. But if I simply select the game, again I'm using my Multiman XMB here, so if I select the game and click the triangle button, I get a range of options popping up. Now one of these options is to copy the game to my internal hard drive. So if I select that, Multiman will start to copy the games file over into a games folder on my hard drive. Now this process will take a while because there's a couple of gigabytes worth of data to copy over here. So let's leave that copying and come back when it's finished. So Multiman has basically ripped the DVD and put it onto my hard drive. And as you see a list of files here, so I can just press square to accept that. And I now have two versions of my game. So one is on my disk and one is on my hard drive. So if I now eject the disk out of my console, you can see that I'm now just left with my hard drive version. So if I now select that to try and run it, you'll find that Multiman is going through a process here. So it's going to verify my data, and then it's going to actually mount that hard drive file as a DVD and drop me back into my normal XMB. And I will now find that I have that game listed as if it was a DVD sitting on my normal system. And if I try and run that then, it will just run as normal. And as the system thinks that it's just a DVD, if I check my garage, you'll see that all of my saved data is all in there ready for me to just pick up from where I left off on the actual game DVD. So that's how you can generate your own backup files from your own game disks. Now naturally, there are other ways of getting hold of these backup files. Now obviously I can't actually give you any details of websites where you can download these, but they aren't that hard to find. And again, if you look around on the internet, they'll pop up fairly easily. Now if you do decide that you want to download some of these files, then do make sure you check out my video on retro game copyright laws, just to make sure that you stay on the right side of legality in your area. The files that you then download, these backup files, they tend to come in one of three formats. So I've got a couple downloaded here already. So we have the ISO format here, and these are direct dumps of the game disks themselves, and that's fairly straightforward. The other two then will usually be delivered to you as some sort of archive file, so I've extracted them out here already. So if I look at this F1 2014, this is what's known as a JB folder. So we have a folder inside that archive, and inside that we then have the actual game files themselves. And this is pretty much identical to what you would produce if you ripped the DVD yourself on your console, just like we did a little bit earlier on. And we get a folder which has got all of the game files inside it. So this is the JB or jailbroken folder format. And that of course will go straight on to the console. The third one then is this one here. And if you look inside that, we have two files in there. One is a package file, one is a wrap file. So these are slightly different, and because these are generally downloaded or files that have been downloaded through the PlayStation network, they do need some sort of licensing information, and we do need to set that up correctly. Now I'm not going to cover that in this particular video. These are just really trying to get you up and running with your newly jailbroken console. But I will be producing a much more in-depth video on how to deal with backup files and get games and everything running on your PlayStation properly. So do look out for that. So let's go back up for these first two then. So we have our JB folder. Let's cope with that one first. So we need to transfer these across using a USB drive onto our console. Now I find that using an SSD drive with a SATA to USB 3 cable gives me my best performance. If you try and use some of the USB thumb drives, because we're transferring something like, some of the games can be sort of 20 gigabytes or more, it does take a long time to transfer those files across onto a standard USB drive. So if we can just speed that process up, it just makes it that bit smoother. So on the root of my drive here, so again, I do use this drive for a lot of my for my file transfers. So these are all Xbox games and software sitting on here. But if I want to do some JB folder games, I first of all need to make a new folder in the root of my USB drive. And that needs to be called Games in all capital letters. And that's where I'm going to transfer my folder. So if I come back out here, I have my extracted JB folder. That is the actual JB folder itself then, the one which has got the games and everything inside, the game files inside it. And that's what I need to transfer into this games folder. So on our USB drive then, we do have our games folder with our JB folder sitting inside that for our game. So for our ISO file then, we need to do it a slightly different way. So again, on the root of our USB drive, I'm going to create a new folder again. And I'm going to call this one PS3ISO, again, all capitals. So that's the special folder name for putting our ISO files into. So we come back onto our game downloads. I've got my ISO file there, and I'm simply going to copy that then into this PS3 ISO folder. And there we have it then, sitting inside our folder. So once we've got that ready, it's time to jump on to our console. So on our console, if I plug in my USB drive, hopefully our games should pop up in our game menu. And obviously I'm in multi-man at the moment. So there we have our F1 game there, and there's our cars. And again, you can see that that is being labelled as on my USB drive as an ISO file, and then this one here just on my USB drive. And again, now that we have those available to multi-man, we can just simply select it with our triangle option. We can either, of course, play it directly from that location, or I can then copy it across to my hard drive, where it will then sort out filing it and putting it correctly on my hard drive. So let's put that cars game across first. So you can see we've now got cars copied across to our hard drive. So let's go and copy our F1 2014 as well. So there we have all our files copied across. And again, we now have our double F1 2014 listing. So if I pull out my USB drive now, we should find now we have our 3 games now on our hard drive. So if I select one to see if we can play that. So again, Multiman is installing that as a virtual DVD drive. And there we have our game there. And let's go in and play that. And there we have our game all up and running, and of course that's now from an ISO file downloaded as a backup and now installed directly onto our hard drive. So you can see now that we can get access to pretty much any game we want using this backup files and then installing them onto our hard drive. And all of that done through the single app Multiman. Well, you've now got a jailbroken PS3 with a full custom firmware installation. So what else can you do with it? Well, so far we've looked at playing any PS3 game you want, but you can expand this to any PS2 game, PS1 game, or even the PSP. And again, you can play all of those games from backup files and transfer them onto your internal hard drive. Now the homebrew library also contains many retro console emulators, so you can turn your PlayStation 3 into a Super NES or Mega Drive, or even turn it into an arcade game emulator. Plus, there's a wealth of original homebrew apps and games for you to start experimenting with. So over the next few videos, I'll start to cover many of these topics and show you how to get the most from this great console. So please do make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to make sure you get notified about the new videos as I release them. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and that you'll hack your console to unleash its full potential. So, I look forward to seeing you again very soon, and bye for now. For more games programming, electronics projects and retro gaming, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel and visit my website.